Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the book of Ezra. In the first year of Cyrus, king of the Persians, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of the Persians, so that the word of the Lord from the mouth of Jeremiah would be fulfilled. And he sent out a voice throughout all his kingdom, and also in writing, saying, Thus says Cyrus, king of the Persians, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given all the kingdoms of the earth to me, and he himself has instructed me to build a house for him in Jerusalem, which is in Judea. Who among you is from his entire people? May his God be with him. Let him ascend to Jerusalem, which is in Judea, and let him build the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. And let all who remain in all the places wherever they may live assist him, each man from his place, with silver and gold and goods and cattle, in addition to whatever they may offer voluntarily to the temple of God, which is in Jerusalem. And so the leaders of the fathers from Judah and from Benjamin, with the priests and the Levites, and all those whose spirit was stirred by God, rose up, so that they might ascend to build the temple of the Lord, which was in Jerusalem. And all those who were all around assisted their hands with vessels of silver and gold, with goods and equipment, and with gems, aside from the things that they had offered voluntarily.
The Lord has done marvels for us. The Lord has done marvels for us. From tears we are restored, from sorrow we rise in joy. When the Lord brought back the captives of Zion, we were like men who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with shouts of joy. Done marvels for us. The Lord has done marvels for us. From tears we are restored, from sorrow we rise in joy. The nation said, things for them. Yes, the Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad indeed. The Lord has done marvels for us. The Lord has done marvels for us. From tears we are restored, from sorrow we rise in joy. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like torrents in the desert. Those who sow in tears will reap with shouts of joy. Though they go out weeping, carrying seed to be sown, and they shall come home rejoicing, carrying sheaves of life. The Lord has done marvels.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Now no one, lighting a lamp, covers it with a container or places it under a bed. Instead, he places it on a lampstand so that those who enter may see the light. For there is nothing secret which will not be made clear, nor is there anything hidden which will not be known and be brought into the open. Therefore, take care how you listen. For whoever has, it will be given to him, and whoever does not have, even what he thinks he has will be taken away from him. Join us for today's reflection. 70 years. That's how long the Jewish people sat in Babylonian exile, watching their children grow up speaking foreign languages, practicing foreign customs, slowly forgetting the songs of Zion. 70 years of wondering if God had forgotten his promises, if the temple would ever be rebuilt, if their identity as God's chosen people meant anything anymore. Then one day, everything changed. Not through military rebellion or dramatic miracle, but through the quiet decision of a pagan king named Cyrus, who suddenly felt stirred to let the exiles go home and rebuild what had been destroyed. Ezra's account of this moment captures something profound about how God's light works in the world. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation that would restore not just a building, but an entire people's relationship with their divine calling. The light that had seemed extinguished during decades of exile had actually been burning all along, waiting for the right moment to illuminate a path home. Jesus' teaching about lamps and baskets takes on deeper meaning in this context. No one lights a lamp and covers it with a bowl, he says. The purpose of light is to shine, to reveal what was hidden, to make visible what was lost in darkness. But here's what we often miss. The light Jesus is talking about isn't just the message we're supposed to share with others. It's the light of God's presence that continues burning even in the darkest seasons of our lives, even when we can't see evidence of his activity, even when it feels like our prayers are bouncing off heaven's ceiling. The psalm today celebrates this reality. The Lord has done marvels for us. We are glad indeed. But notice the context. This joy comes after tears, after exile, after seasons when it seemed like God's promises had been forgotten. The marvel isn't that God prevented suffering, but that he was working through it to accomplish purposes that weren't visible until the moment of restoration. The Jewish exiles couldn't have imagined that their displacement would result in the spread of monotheistic faith throughout the ancient world, or that their experience of loss would deepen their understanding of what it means to hope against hope. They couldn't see that the light of their witness was shining, even in the darkness of foreign lands, influencing people like Cyrus, who would eventually become instruments of God's restoration. This challenges our modern assumption that God's presence is most evident when life is going according to our plans. The exile experience suggests something different, that God's light often shines brightest when we're forced to discover that our security doesn't depend on familiar circumstances, but on his unchanging character. Jesus warns that the measure with which you measure will be measured out to you. In context, this isn't just about generosity or judgment, but about attention and recognition. Those who learn to see God's light even in dark seasons develop the spiritual eyes to recognize his activity everywhere. Those who assume his absence during difficulty miss his presence even when it's obvious. The Jewish restoration began not with a miraculous intervention, but with an ordinary political decision by a foreign ruler. If the exiles had been watching only for dramatic supernatural rescue, they might have missed the quiet way God was already answering their deepest prayers through means they never would have expected. This raises uncomfortable questions about our own seasons of waiting, disappointment, or apparent spiritual dryness. How often do we interpret God's silence as his absence? How often do we assume that delayed answers mean denied prayers? How often do we stop looking for his light because it's not shining in the places or ways we expected? The lamp Jesus describes doesn't create light, it reveals light that already exists. Similarly, God's activity in our lives isn't dependent on our ability to perceive it. His purposes are unfolding whether we recognize them or not. Our job isn't to manufacture spiritual results, but to keep our eyes open for the ways He's already working, often through the most ordinary and unexpected means. The restoration from exile wasn't just about returning to a geographical location. It was about rediscovering that God's promises are more reliable than the circumstances that seem to contradict them. The light that guided them home was the same light that had sustained them in exile. They just hadn't always recognized it. Cyrus becomes a powerful symbol in this story, the unlikely instrument through whom God accomplishes His purposes. Sometimes the stirring that changes everything in our lives comes not through spiritual giants or dramatic interventions, but through ordinary people making ordinary decisions that happen to align with God's extraordinary timing. The question Jesus' teaching raises is whether we're developing the kind of spiritual vision that can recognize God's light even when it's burning in unexpected places, even when it's revealing truths we didn't want to see, even when it's illuminating paths we didn't choose, but that lead exactly where we need to go. Because the promise embedded in both Ezra's historical account and Jesus' lamp parable is that light cannot ultimately be hidden. What God begins, He completes. What He plants, He harvests. What looks like ending often turns out to be the beginning of something better than we had before.